Greetings from Wofford College. I hope that you're safe and well. Actually, in the spirit of staying at home, I want to offer a very brief Easter sermon from my home here in Spartanburg. I've never done a selfie sermon before, but we're all doing things we've never done before. Life has changed significantly, and it has changed very fast. Whenever we're on campus at Wofford during Holy Week, we have several activities, and they culminate with the procession of the cross along Campus Drive. Students then go home usually on Friday, and they're away for Easter with their families or with their friends. It can feel very deserted that weekend. Not quite as deserted as it feels right now, but it's usually a rather quiet in-between time. This recording is being made during an in-between time, the time between Good Friday and Easter Sunday. In a similar way, we are all living in an in-between time right now. There was a world before COVID-19, and there will be a world after COVID-19. But right now, we are in between. Colleges spend a lot of our time dealing with in-betweens. We deal with the movement from adolescence to adulthood, from dependence to independence. Our community is filled with people who are going through transitions. Some of those are anticipated, and others are completely unanticipated. There are intellectual and physical and psychological and spiritual transitions. There are relationship transitions and family and friend transitions. There are transitions in the places where we end up grounding our values. Wherever there's a transition, there is an in-between time, a liminal space, and it can be very difficult living through that time. The early church established Holy Saturday as an in-between time, between the sorrow of Good Friday and the joy of Easter Sunday. It's an very uncomfortable time. It's a time of waiting, and we're people who don't wait very well. Waiting feels awkward. We don't have things to do, and we're doers. In Jesus' day, people were waiting for a Messiah who would usher in an age of justice and peace. And many of them were heartbroken when Jesus was executed on a cross. It looked as though God had lost and Caesar had won. My job is to remind us that resurrection happens. I've noticed that Andra Day's very powerful song, Rise Up, has been getting a lot of play recently. It's a message that we need. On Friday, there is death and sorrow, but on Sunday, there's resurrection and hope. And that's what I'm talking about. Having an Easter faith in a Good Friday world. Resurrection happens to us too. Who among us doesn't have a story, a personal story of emerging from a tomb of despair or pain or broken relationships or unfulfilled dreams? Who among us can't point to a time in our lives when all seemed lost and then in some way hope returned and we were able to rise up? Frederick Buechner used to be the chaplain at Phillips Exeter Academy. He talked with young people about hope. And he said they listened. And he says, I think they listened because hope lies at the center of who we are. Hope that, in spite of all the devastating evidence to the contrary, the ground we stand on is holy ground because Christ walked here and still does. That's the hope that Easter brings for you and for me in this in-between time. S.M. Lockridge was a pastor in San Diego during the last half of the last century. He had the best preacher name ever, Shadrach Meshach Lockridge. He had some famous sermons, and currently some hip-hop artists are dubbing some of them into their music. He had this one sermon that people have used and reused and even written books about. It's Friday, but Sunday's coming. He says, it's Friday. Jesus is praying. Peter's sleeping. Judas is betraying. But Sunday's coming. It's Friday. The disciples are running. Mary's crying. Peter's denying. But they don't know that Sunday's coming. It's Friday. The earth trembles. The sky grows dark. hope is lost. But it's Friday. It's only Friday. Sunday's coming. My job in this in-between time is to remind us that Sunday's coming. It's my prayer that the Lord will bless you and keep you, make his face shine upon you, be gracious unto you, lift up his countenance upon you, and give you peace, and that each day those to whom love is a stranger will find in you a very generous friend. Sunday's coming. Easter blessings.